Hey, this is Ryan from 60 Second Hum, the Guitar Podcast, and today I'm going to show you the Harley Benton Fusion. This is their newer series of guitars. It's loaded out like a super strat, humbuckers, Floyd Rose, locking nut, some sort of quilty crazy finish here on the top, which we'll discuss later. Let's do what I normally do. I'll start at the headstock and work my way all the way down to the butt end of the guitar. And hopefully it doesn't take too long and you get all the information you need. So anyways, let's start with the headstock. It's got Grover tuners on them. It's just fine. There's no reason to change these unless you have a personal preference. I actually haven't opened up the locking nut here, but I can twist them and feel they're just fine. They're smooth. They look good. They're Grovers. You know what Grovers are like. There is some sort of dampening bar here, string tree across all the strings to get them nice and even across the headstock. I don't know if that does anything special. I don't know if that's a benefit. You tell me down in the comments. Locking nut, you love it, you know it. Comes with all the Floyd Rose style guitars. It's in there, it works. The strings feel like they're the correct distance away from the fretboard. No issues there. Let's talk about the neck. Maple on the back, some kind of dark wood on the front. Ever since sights, I have no idea what is anymore. Maybe I'll flash the actual description of the wood down here below, because I know it can't be rosewood. If it was shipped here from Indonesia to Germany and then to here, yeah, there's no way it's rosewood. So some sort of dark wood on the fretboard. Looks good, feels fine, whatever. 25.5-inch scale, so kind of like classic traditional Fender scale there. 12-inch radius, so nice and flat and fast, not too flat or too fast. It's not anything ridiculous like an 18-inch radius or anything like that. The shape of the neck is a nice, full, comfortable C sort of shape. It's not a ridiculous flat D shape like you might find on some more extreme shredder style guitars. I think this is the fullest neck I've ever had on a guitar I owned that was, a Floyd Rose style, kind of like deedly guitar. So I kind of enjoy it. I enjoy the fuller neck. It's comfortable to me. I don't have any issues with it, and I like that it's a little fatter than, Ibanez's or other shreddy guitars I've owned in the past. The fretwork. The fretwork is about what you could expect from a guitar in this price range. This guitar is one of the more expensive guitars from the Fusion line. It's $340 US, I think. I don't know what it is in euros. And you do have to pay $35 shipping to get packages from Thomann in Germany. By the way, Harley Benton is Thomann's house brand. That's why I mentioned them. They stand up a little bit on the edges, a little bit edgy, but they're not sharp. They're not going to cut into you. I came into playing guitars in the 90s when there was plenty of cheap guitars on the market that, you did run the risk of being sliced open by the frets because they were so sharp and so poor. You definitely don't get that on this guitar at all. Totally fine player for the price point. If I felt these frets on like a $1,200 guitar, on an $800 guitar, I might be like, wait a minute, I think you guys should smooth those out a little bit. But for $340, $375 after shipping, they're just fine. These frets are just fine. They're nice and jumbo, really fat, tall frets. I don't own any other guitars that have frets this jumbo right now, so it's a nice addition to my collection for when I want to do some ridiculous tappy sort of tricks like that. No issues with the neck, really. It's a fine player. I enjoy playing it. Nice, comfortable, modern bolt-on heel here. Smoothed out a bit and round on the edge. Your hand wraps right around it. Plenty of fret access. If there were frets on the pickup, I could play it with this cutaway here. It's a pretty traditional and standard super strat sort of shape. Nothing ridiculous or innovative or interruptive about the shape of this guitar. There is a truss rod adjustment right here at the edge of the fretboard, in between the fretboard and the pickup. It's the kind you can stick an Allen wrench in there, tweak it back and forth for minor adjustments or major adjustments. I don't know why you're making those adjustments. A truss rod should be kind of set and forget, but it's nice to know that if you do need to make some minor tweaks here and there, it's pretty easy to access versus a standard style headstock truss adjustment, or even worse, the style where you have to release the neck from the body and adjust it and cross your fingers and hope you got it right. The pickups, let's talk about the pickups. I think they sound just fine. They're standard humbucker sound. Nothing ridiculous or incredible or awful or devastating about them. They just work. They sound good on the humbucker setting. You can flick the switch to coil split and get a single coil sound, which I think sounds fairly decent. A little bit thin, but has that twang to it and is a great addition on the fly. Three-way switch, bridge, middle neck, obviously volume, tone. Floyd Rose bridge on this thing. I don't know if this is a licensed Floyd Rose. It just says Floyd Rose on it with no other markings, no trademark or restricted mark or anything like that. Back in the day, any Floyd Rose that was licensed would say licensed Floyd Rose on it. I don't know if that's the case anymore. If it's the real deal, it's incredible that it came with a $340 guitar. It feels very nice. It looks real. I don't have any complaints about it there. It doesn't look like the most premium Floyd Rose I've ever seen. I've seen that have, really sharp machining on them and smooth edges and whatnot. And this, it definitely looks like it was dipped in chrome and it has some seams and stuff like that. But I've got no issue with it. The bar feels like it's going to get worn in to be a little bit smoother because there's a tiny bit of a grit to it when I'm moving the bar back and forth. I have used the micro adjusters on there and they're just fine. No issues there. Out of the box, this guitar was set up and in tune and ready to play, but I wanted it to be a little bit faster, so I dropped the bridge just like a turn and a half to get it a little bit faster to my own personal sort of preference. So I had to use the micro tuners to bring the guitar back in tune. No issues there, works just fine. Let's talk about the quilted finish on this guitar. It is some kind of very thin wood veneer. This one is stained to this kind of like aqua, like swimming pool kind of color here, which is fun. I don't have any other guitars anywhere near this color. Something you need to be aware of is that this grain has zero depth to it. It's not a quilt like if you pick up a really expensive quilted guitar and you like shift it in the light and it's like waves of water bouncing around a swimming pool or a pristine lake or something like that. This finish is flat, flat, flat. There is no dimensionality to it. There is no shimmer when you move it around. It is just this kind of like warbly wood pattern that's been stained, and some of the grain took it darker than the rest of the grain. Don't expect to be, staring into a deep pool of water with this guitar is what I'm saying. It is what it is. Same thing for the headstock. It's the same thin veneer. There is a natural colored wood veneer sort of, what are that called? A binding on the edge here, which is a tasteful look. I would have preferred if this came in a more standard kind of wood grain than trying to do the quilty thing and not hit it even just a little bit. Like they didn't hit it at all. Like if they had hit it a little bit, I would have forgiven it. But I would rather have a more standard kind of finish on this than this sort of quilty thing. Like there's a lot of shreddy guitars out there that are coming out in neon colors. I would have loved to have this guitar in a neon color. Making it in all black is a no-brainer. I think people would have loved it in that color. Yeah, there's a lot of other options that they could have gone with, and maybe they'll come out with that in the future, but I think people, for the most part, are going to be disappointed by this finish, and that's something to consider because finishes are important. They are part of your connection to the guitar and how you identify with the guitar, how it matches your style, and as part of your, your stage persona. So anyways, another quirky thing about this guitar is the back of it. And you can see that the back is painted black. That's fine. I think it's a neat look. Different color on the back and sides. The plate here that covers the springs for the trem unit for the Floyd Rose is actually sitting on top of the guitar and higher. Let's see if we can focus on that. And higher than the rest of the body, which I think is a really odd decision. I'm guessing that the trem block was too thick through the body for them to recess this down at the body. It doesn't bother me all that much, but it's a sign of kind of like the budget quality of this. A more expensive guitar, they would have made the body a little bit thicker to drop that in or accommodated it in some other way. I tend to take the back panels off of my trem guitars so I can adjust the screws and keep an eye on things. So it's not going to bother me personally. Also interesting that it butts up against the control plate right here. Other than that, I don't have any issues with any quality control stuff on this guitar. Everything works. There's no, weird marks or blemishes in the finish. The quality control seems to be really decent, especially for the price point of $340 before it shipped. I think it's a decent buy. If you're looking for kind of a backup Floyd Rose guitar because you have another one and if you break a string on stage you're going to need to grab another guitar, this is a decent buy. It's also a decent buy for a new player that's looking to get into a shreddy Floyd Rose sort of situation here on the budget. Comparable, you could probably go buy an RG 450 used for the same money as this, but honestly I had one of those and I thought the pickups were garbage. The bridge was a little bit interesting too. This is going to be a more traditional Floyd Rose sort of feel with pickups that you don't necessarily have to change. I mean, it's personal preference, but I think they sound just fine. The neck, like I said, not super thin and wizardy, but it's just fine for anyone who wants to play decently fast. I think it's a good guitar. It really comes down to personal preference with the finish and kind of the specs that are, most of the specs are just fine. It's all subjective. All right, well, let me know what you think down in the comments. Do all the normal YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, dislike, leave me rude, nasty comments. Support us on Patreon, all that sort of stuff. I'm going to play out with some sort of noodly, metally little jam, I'm sure. All right, later, guys.